The following ad was made using only AI.
Taste. You either have it or you don't.
It can't be faked. It can't be measured or mapped like data.
Taste lies in the soul of a drink, forged with craft, patience, and time.
Each sip, a glimpse into its story. And for a moment,
The noise fades.
The world slows.
and all that's left is taste. Arc. Some say it's acquired. I say it's instinct.
I've got to be honest here. If you'd have told me 6 months ago that not just this entire ad, but the brand itself was built using only AI, I'd have never believed you. The creative game has well and truly changed. And if you're not playing along, you're losing out. I'm Jack. I've been a VFX artist in the advertising industry for over a decade now. And I've worked for many of the biggest brands on the planet. In today's video, we're checking out ElevenLabs because in some pretty huge news, they've just added image and video generation to the platform. ElevenLabs is my go-to when it comes to AI voiceover, sound effects, and music. So to have the option to generate all of your audio and visuals on the same platform is pretty insane. So I'm gonna go ahead and take you through the process of creating our AI ad within ElevenLabs. And guys, if you do enjoy today's content, make sure to whack a like on there for me, consider subscribing, and of course, ring that bell notification icon. All right, let's get straight into it. So of course, the first step of our process was coming up with some kind of concept. And I'd seen an image, I can't even remember where to be honest, of an animal wearing a suit. And we've seen this in all kinds of movies, TV shows, and adverts at this point. But there's something about it which is quite visually striking and memorable, I think. So that was kind of the starting blocks for the idea. I knew that I wanted to go with that kind of visual concept. And the next stage was to try to think of some kind of product that would complement that idea. And I settled on a premium beer. And with that in mind, it was time to start creating our visuals. So here we are over on ElevenLabs. If you look at the top left-hand corner, you'll see there is a tab for image and video. You can see a whole load of stuff that the community have been creating, but if we click on the history tab, then we're going to see everything that I've generated within the platform. Now, the first thing that I wanted to do was actually create our product. So to do this, you can see at the bottom of the screen, there's a tab where we can switch over to image creation. And by default, it goes straight to Nano Banana. And you can see here some of my initial generations. If we hover over a text prompt, it's going to reveal the entire thing. And if we click on it, it's going to populate this area at the bottom of the page. So you can see the prompt that I used to get these images. I did end up making little tweaks here and there as I developed the concept further. You can see originally I was going to go for actually having 4 different animals on the beer and throughout the advert as well. I kept noticing that Nano Banana wanted me to have 3 images on the bottle. I don't know, I just kind of took this as a bit of a sign that like the rule of 3, maybe that's the route to go down rather than having too many different characters. And so over the course of time, I'm kind of thinking about which specific animals I want, how many I want, and eventually I settled on the tiger, rhino, and giraffe, so all kind of safari animals. And originally I was really interested in just having this kind of like printed label look. You can see that's one of the older designs still, but as we move further up into my generations, this kind of look. Of course, we want as premium a feeling beer as possible. So something like this, not really the vibe that I was after. Lots of trial and error and experimentation to kind of get towards the end result. I did really like this generation as well. And as we continue to scroll further up, what I eventually settled on was to actually have the design like embossed or carved into the glass itself, just because I thought that process would be more costly than just printing a label. And therefore it gives off more of like a premium vibe. Eventually we made our way towards this design and I was really happy with this. And if I just move myself over to the right hand side here, you can see we have the option to either use this image as a reference. We can click here to recreate or turn it into a video, or we can go ahead and upscale. So the upscaling tool that's built into ElevenLabs is Topaz, which I'm sure you guys are pretty familiar with. So this is what we settled on. This was our final product. And we ended up going ahead and calling it Arc or Arc Brew to kind of tie in with this whole idea of Noah's Ark. And now the next stage was to start to create our characters. So you can see the text prompt. I was using photoreal image of a Bengal tiger in a perfectly tailored black tuxedo and open white shirt. So you can see for these initial generations, I was actually using Seedream, and this gave a more realistic result. But I don't know what it is. What I kind of noticed with Seedream is the fur texture just didn't look all that great. It was a bit kind of like muddied. And moving further up, you'll see me start to experiment with Nano Banana instead. Let's keep scrolling. Yeah, you can see eventually we start playing around with Nano Banana, and it doesn't look as real, but I kind of like the stylized vibe to it, and the fur texture looks a lot better in my opinion. So again, there's this kind of iterative process where I'm trying to find that initial starting frame. This is really important because it's the first thing that you're going to see in the whole of the ad. And the intention, of course, is the same workflow that I personally follow for pretty much all of the AI work that I do. It's to generate images to act as our starting frame. So for instance, this is the first image that I generated that I really loved, and it turned out to be the starting image of the entire ad. So yeah, this was the kind of first stage, creating the images that we'd go on to animate. You can see loads of the tiger, and eventually you start to see our rhino character as well. But rather than just showing you guys things that we've already built, I thought we'd go ahead and build the giraffe character together. So when you watch that ad, I haven't actually created all of those shots yet. We're going to do that right now throughout the video. So if we just go ahead and we'll just scroll right the way to the top of the page, I'm going to go ahead and drop in my text prompt. It reads, photoreal image of a giraffe in a blue tuxedo and turtleneck, leaning back at a high stakes poker table in an expensive and exclusive club. And the end of the prompt is something that I always reuse. If you guys have seen my videos before, I always bang on about putting this at the end of my text prompts: photoreal, ultra detailed fur texture, visible pores, cinematic composition, harsh shadows, shallow depth of field. Now for the image reference, what I'm actually going to go ahead and do is put in this image here of our hero character, the tiger, just to kind of try and get a similar vibe essentially. So we'll just get that uploaded there. Towards the bottom, you can see we can select our model from a variety of different image generation models baked into ElevenLabs. I'm going to, of course, go for Nano Banana, but you can see we have the option for Seedream 4 if we want a more realistic output, and even GPT Image 1, Flux 1, Context Pro as well. We're going to go for Nano Banana. We definitely want to make sure we're rendering at a 16:9 aspect ratio, and we can also select the amount of generations we're going to get back. Generally, when it comes to images, I just go ahead and use 4 because you're spending less credits anyway than you would if you were generating a video, for example. So let's go ahead and set off this generation and see what we get back for our giraffe character. Yeah, so you can see that Nano Banana is actually kind of struggling with this here. We're getting a hoof laid on the table, but anytime we're trying to get the cards to be held by our giraffe, it's just not working. So because it's not a deal breaker, I'm just going to try and remove any mention of cards, and we'll just set off another 4 generations. Yeah, so we're still struggling. I want to try just put in he has hoofs for hands. Would it be hooves or hoofs? I don't know what the plural is for that word. Okay, so we're now starting to get back the type of generation that we're after. I do really like this one, and we've got some kind of creepy dog characters in the background. I quite like that. This one here is kind of confused about the hands, and there's actually people behind our character, which we don't really want. I think we're going to go ahead and use this image here. I really like this. So now we can go ahead and click the Create Video tab, and you're going to see the image we just generated is being used as the starting frame. We want to clear out our text prompt because that's not what we want. And we can go ahead and select our model. I'm going to be using Google Veo 3.1. Aspect ratio 16:9. We want to go for 1080p resolution. In terms of duration of render, I would suggest you guys go for 6 seconds. And this is because if you want to use the voice changer feature, which is something I ended up doing, you have to make sure that your generations are at least 5 seconds on ElevenLabs. If they're under that, you won't get the option for voice changer, background noise removal, and all of those useful features. We want to make sure our sound is turned on. And in terms of the amount of generations, I usually just go for 2. I think 4's kind of overkill. And I've just scrolled down to the bottom of the page because I want to take you guys through my initial sort of testing process as well for how we went ahead and did our voiceover or lip sync. Because my original plan was to use ElevenLabs text to speech feature. So I would basically generate the lines just as like an audio file. And I planned to just have them lip synced onto our characters. And if we go down to the model selection feature and I just scroll down a little bit, you can see there are 2 different models available for lip syncing. We've got Veed Lip Sync and OmniHuman 1.5. Now the issue with OmniHuman is that it wouldn't even generate, it wouldn't go through. I kept getting this error message saying unable to identify human mouth. So the issue was that we were trying to get an animal to talk. And this is something that I did not think would be a problem at all, but apparently it is. And even with Veed Lip Sync, we tried this out and we did get a generation back, but I'll show you the problem.
You either have it or you don't. It can't be faked. It can't be measured or mapped like data.
So as you can see, the voiceover itself is there and it's functioning correctly, but we're not getting any lip movement from our tiger character. So it was at that point basically where I decided I knew that I would have to use Veo 3.1. And what I instantly recognized was that each generation from Veo 3.1, even though they were going to be for the same character because they're separate generations, the voices would all be slightly different. But thanks to the ElevenLabs voice changer feature, which we'll get into a bit later on, we're able to go in and actually change the voices, assign a particular voice characteristic to each of these kind of like slightly different generations to make sure that our characters all have consistent voices throughout the ad. So we'll go through that in a little bit. But with our video generation for the text prompt, I've just put in slow camera dolly move in. The giraffe speaks with a gruff, deep, bold, and confident voice with an American accent. He says, taste lies in the soul of a drink, forged with craft, patience, and time. And I've just put on the end here, no music, because of course that makes it a little bit tricky when it comes to the edit itself. So let's go ahead and send off these generations. Once again, we're being able to generate all of our images and videos within the ElevenLabs platform. And when we get a little bit further into the video and I start to show you guys some of the audio capabilities that ElevenLabs have, you'll understand why this is such a useful tool set. Okay, so we've got our Veo 3.1 generations back. Let's go ahead and give them a listen.
Taste lies in the soul of a drink, forged with craft, patience, and time.
Very nice. That's exactly what we're after. Let's listen to the next generation.
Taste lies in the soul of a drink, forged with craft, patience, and time.
I don't know what happens to the giraffe's eyes there. I don't like that. It's kind of creepy, huh? Lucky for us, the first generation is doing exactly what we want. So as I was saying earlier, now we're going to click this upscale tab. I'm going to send the video off to Topaz, hit generate here. I'm going to get it back at 3840 by 2160. Like I said, I found some issues with taking the Nano Banana output, upscaling that, and then putting that into Veo 3.1 and then upscaling that again. It was like there was too much sharpening happening and the fur textures and stuff, particularly with the rhino actually, were just behaving really strangely and you just don't want that. So this workflow for this specific work case was pretty good. Okay, so we have our Topaz upscale back. We can load this in 4K.
Taste lies in the soul of a drink, forged with craft, patience, and time.
And that is looking really nice and sharp. Yeah, knocked it out of the park. So for the next image we want to generate of our giraffe, I want to replicate a similar type of framing to the tiger and rhino when we're closer, when the camera is tighter framed around them. So to do this, we'll switch over to image generation. I'll just clear out that text prompt. And if I hover over this one here of the rhino, for example, and just hit click, it's going to automatically populate this area at the bottom of the page. And if we scroll right the way up to our giraffe, this is the image. And you can see we can click this reference tab and it's going to populate as an image reference for our next Nano Banana generation of the close-up. All I have to do is go ahead and change the rhino's head to giraffe's head. And we can go ahead and hit generate. All of these generations look good in different ways, but what we want to keep an eye out for is that it's very clear where the giraffe's mouth is. So there might be a bit of trial and error here, because if VO 3.1 struggles to identify where the mouth is, it's going to start moving and kind of like creating lips that aren't there and all sorts of weird stuff. Personally, I really like this image here. So I think we're going to go ahead and try this out. Hopefully VO 3.1 can understand where the mouth of the giraffe is with this particular shot. Fingers crossed. So once again, we'll click on the video tab. We want to change the model to VO 3.1. Change the resolution to 1080p. The duration, we want 6 seconds, so we can change the audio with the ElevenLabs features. We want to turn our audio on, and let's go for 2 generations. So for the text prompt, we've just gone for static camera. And again, the same kind of description that we used before of the type of voice that we're after. And then we've just put in the line of dialogue, "The world slows." Let's check out this generation here.
The world slows.
Okay, that's looking pretty good. I think that's usable. Another generation here.
The world slows.
Yes, that's the best one, because we're not seeing too much of his jumper there.
The world slows.
Doesn't matter too much about that music at the end. We can kind of just cut that off. That's not going to be an issue. Okay, so let's go ahead and upscale this generation that we liked. We'll send that one off. So with our upscaled video generations back for both of the giraffe shots, I'm going to go ahead and go to the left-hand side here and click on the studio option. And at the top, we're going to click the tab that says new blank project. I'm going to pick a video project. So this is a basic editor, which is now built into ElevenLabs. And on the top right-hand side, you can see we have a video tab where we're going to have access to actually generating videos within the studio, or looking at our full generation history, where we can ingest, by clicking this little plus logo, our upscaled videos of our giraffe. So let's get both of those ingested and dropped onto our timeline. So if we watch these through, you're going to see that the voice is going to be different for both generations.
Taste lies in the soul of a drink, forged with craft, patience, and time. The world slows.
So there's obviously a complete lack of character consistency happening there. It's just going to completely break our illusion very quickly. But if we select one of our video clips, you can see that we've got a few different options here. And the ones that we're interested in is remove background audio and use voice changer. So there is some music on this clip. So I'm going to go ahead and remove the background audio. Let's go ahead and listen to this through.
The world slows.
Good, so we've lost that music at the end of our generation that we don't want anyway. Now the important part, let's click use voice changer. So there is a crazy diverse library of voices that you can use here on ElevenLabs. I know that for the giraffe, I wanted to use this Peter Hartwood voice. So I'm going to go ahead and select that here and click change voice. Now let's listen back and see how it's done.
The world slows.
Very nice. And now selecting our first clip, I want to first click the remove background audio option. And once again, we'll click use voice changer. We're going to use the same voice again, Peter Harwood, and click change voice. And we can compare to make sure that we've got that nice level of character consistency that we're after.
Taste lies in the soul of a drink, forged with craft, patience, and time. The world slows.
Perfect. So now we can go ahead and click the export button at the top right of the screen. For media type, we want to click video, and we can just go ahead and click export, and we can use this within our editor of choice. Of course, you can still do all of your editing inside of the ElevenLabs studio, but if you want a little bit more control, I'm going to be pulling it into Premiere Pro. So here we are over in Premiere Pro where we have the finished edit of our AI advert. And as you can see, we have various different layers when it comes to both the visuals and the audio. I'm going to explore all of that with you guys now so you can see exactly how we pieced this whole thing together. So in terms of all of these shots of our different characters, if I just pick up this over here and then just drag the clip out, you'll see that this is one of our exports from ElevenLabs. I've just muted the audio for the sake of kind of describing what's happening, but this is all of our clips stuck together where we went through and applied the voice changer to give our character a consistent voice throughout. So I just went through and cut up each of the clips and just repeated the same process for our rhino and for our giraffe character. And you'll notice as well that I actually also added some cutaways. So here you can see a shot. If I just go ahead and I'll just disable the text supers that appear over the top, we have this shot where you're kind of seeing the beer move on like a macro detail scale. Now you can see that this was also generated inside of ElevenLabs using VO 3.1, actually a really long detailed text prompt, which I asked ChatGPT to help me out with writing. So all I said to ChatGPT was write me a text prompt for an AI video generator for a premium 3D rendered cinematic sequence to show the process of beer brewing in macro detail. And eventually kind of went through some refinement stages and ended up asking ChatGPT to say, let's just focus on the beer as a liquid itself. Lots of bubbles and luxurious golden waves, no mention of barley or steel pipes, because it kept kind of including those elements, the barley and like all of these big like gritty pipes and stuff. And it wasn't actually that like aesthetically pleasing. I think what we landed on really does work in the context of our ad, specifically at this point where the giraffe is talking about the brewing process. And I really wanted to lay over this simple text here. Of course, that kind of relates to the end frame as well. We did come up with a little bit of branding. And to do this, I just went across to Canva. Again, I just have a free account here. And it's the same process that I always do whenever I try to do a little bit of branding. I knew what the name was going to be already. It's just a case of writing it out and then testing out loads of different fonts until you find something that works. From my experience, simpler is always better. And of course, we are creating a brand for a premium beer. So particularly in that case, the simpler stuff kind of works better in my opinion. It comes across as more clean and premium. And of course, very important, if we're using a certain font for the end frame itself, we also need to make sure that we use it throughout the ad. So when we're talking about the craft, patience and time, just put this on a green background and ended up keying it off. And you can see that I've just timed each word to land when the giraffe delivers that piece of voiceover. You can also see I ended up adding another cutaway here. So this is for the shot where we're doing a dolly move into the tiger. And I just wanted to show a close-up of the product itself. And this came out really, really nice. So to make this, we once again ended up using Nano Banana. So for the text prompt, it's actually pretty simple. An extreme close-up of the beer bottle. The tiger is holding it with his paw. And actually all of these generations were pretty nice, but I did really like this one and how well Nano Banana handled keeping the details of our branding on the bottle. Product consistency, of course, is very key. And I think really it's just about watching your edits through and thinking about when a cutaway would serve the kind of plot, help the story move along. We don't need to kind of overwhelm things. You don't want too many cutaways. You just want to complement the voiceover at certain points. So then we just have more shots of the tiger speaking, the rhino and the giraffe. All of them have very similar framing, and that was a deliberate choice as well, of course. The tiger delivers his final line and then we end on our end frame. And if I just open this up in full screen, the product end frame for an advert is of course really important. This is kind of the lasting image that you leave with the viewer. Generally speaking, they are a static camera shot. There's not really much movement in there. I did try to generate some VO 3.1 videos to have like bubbles moving around in the bottles, but it always wanted to put camera movement on the shot. I wanted it to be static, so I actually ended up using a still. So to create this end frame was again a bit of an iterative process. This was the original end frame that I had, and this is when I wanted the bubbles to be moving up within the beer glass, and I just could not get that camera to stay still. This, as I'm sure you guys have guessed, was made through Nano Banana. In terms of the image references, we have a shot here of our product and a reference that I was just using to kind of nail down the location itself. In terms of the text prompt, the beer is in sharp focus on the left-hand side of frame, empty space on the right-hand side, premium end frame for a TV ad cinematic composition. So I actually ended up feeding this back into Nano Banana and just used a really simple text prompt. The beer is in a 6-pack premium looking box. It's in sharp focus on the left hand side of frame, empty space on the right. Once again, photorealistic premium end frame for a TV ad. We actually got back a load of really nice options for this, but I ended up picking my favorite and of course getting it upscaled in Topaz as well, because I knew that I wasn't going to run this through a video generator. And all that I've done in the edit is just add a very slow post move in. So I'm literally just increasing the scale of the shot ever so slightly, just to add a little bit of movement. And if I zoom right the way in, something else that I did was add a layer of film grain. This is applied throughout the entire advert. So if I just show you, we'll zoom in on this light and I'll turn the film grain layer off. You can see it kind of just looks too smooth basically. And if I turn it back on, it's quite heavy grain, but it really does help to sell the entire advert, but particularly helps with the end frame where there's no movement there at all, aside from that simple post move that I've added. Adding that film grain just gives it a little bit more life and kind of ties everything together from a textural standpoint. And of course, I added the Drink Aware logo. If you guys are from the States, here in the UK, we have certain rules that we have to abide by when it comes to advertising. Of course, this is warning viewers about the danger of alcohol. I've just used it here to kind of sell the fact that this could be used as a real ad. And then of course we end on the shot of the rhino laughing. Now this was actually a bit of a happy accident, because with the VO 3.1 generations, they kept like, he would deliver the line of dialogue and then just laugh at the end. And eventually I thought, no, I think I should actually use that in the ad itself. And I think it just ended up being a nice kind of funny way to round the advert to a close. So that's the visual side of the edit covered. Now I want to talk a little bit about the audio. Don't really need to dive too deeply into the voiceovers themselves because we covered that in a lot of detail already. Thanks to the ElevenLabs voice changer feature, we had our character consistency nailed down pretty quickly and easily. So if we just dive through our other audio layers, I think I'll go ahead and I will mute the voiceover tracks and we can kind of get into this. So the first thing we should talk about is the music used in the ad. So this was all generated entirely within ElevenLabs. If we go back to the platform itself, you can see on the left-hand side, there is a tab for music. And what you're able to do here is enter a text prompt and it will just generate you a track on the fly. So this is our track. If you're interested in the text prompt that I gave to ElevenLabs, it is a raw and energetic garage rock track featuring minimalistic instrumentation, gritty guitar riffs, powerful, capture the spirit of early 2000s indie rock. And the vibe of the song that we got back, I really liked. I felt it was something that you could imagine to see in like a Jack Daniels advert or something like that. Kind of brought a little bit of swagger and countered like the images of our animals wearing these really kind of smart suits. But in terms of our plot, it also serves as quite an important narrative device because of course we have that moment where there's no music and barely any sounds at all. We just have each of the characters talking. And the way that we kind of achieved that break was using a riser sound effect because it was just proving too hard to kind of cut on the beat and it felt very awkward. So I knew that what I needed to do was introduce a sound effect to kind of rise up and allow me to just cut the music off. And what I also did for a lot of the shots was introduce ambience through sound design. So with the tigers shot, you can hear that we have like a bar, like the atmosphere of people chatting and things like that. For the rhino, we have the flickering fire, because as a viewer, you can see the fire in the bottom left of frame. It does draw your eye, so you expect to have some kind of sound effect to really sell the visual. And then for the giraffe, we've got similar ambience you'd expect to hear in like a posh casino. Now, the reason I mentioned the ambient sound effects is they play an important role when we cut off the music as well, because what I did was I added the ambience of our bar scene and I just made it really, really loud. But you can see here I've faded it on. In Premiere Pro, it's really easy to just add these fades by just dragging this section out. So if we just listen to the riser and the ambience, you'll see what I mean. If I just cut the music without kind of creating some expectation that some change was coming, it would just feel very abrupt and just a little bit sloppy and poor quality, really. So what I think it might be cool to do is just listen to the whole ad through, but I'll just mute the voiceover so you guys can kind of hear how I've gone about using certain sound effects. And then also we'll do one more listen through, but I will mute the music track just to give you guys even more of a detailed perspective on how we handled the audio editing itself. So there you go then, guys. I think we have covered everything at this point. We've gone through a lot of detail for every single step that was involved throughout the process of creating this ad. And guys, if you have enjoyed today's content, make sure to whack a like on there for me. If you're new, consider subscribing, and of course, ring that bell notification icon so you never miss any future uploads. If you've got any questions at all, make sure to drop them down below in the comment section. I will reply to as many as I can. And we'll end the video by watching our finished ad one final time. Thanks for watching, guys. Have a good one.
Taste. You either have it or you don't.
It can't be faked. It can't be measured or mapped like data.
Taste lies in the soul of a drink, forged with craft, patience, and time.
Each sip, a glimpse into its story. And for a moment,
The noise fades.
The world slows.
and all that's left is taste. Arc. Some say it's acquired. I say it's instinct.
Oh,